This is Donovan Doust, playing as Luckbox 78 on Kick Poker. We were talking about the changing of the guards, and this is going to be a continuation of that series. I will try to take some breaks in the hand, to discuss hands as we go. But pretty generally, I would just like to talk about, more or less finish up where we left off, talking about 6 max and talking about the evolution of the game. Kind of the way I see it, and I think we went into it to some degree prior, is I look at poker and the metagame as sort of this big rock, paper, scissors situation. In the RPS rock, paper, scissors-ish metagame, P-Fish or payoff wizard, calling stations, those types of players are eaten by the tight aggressive rocks, and the tight aggressive players, especially tight players, are eaten by the maniacs, and the maniacs are eaten by the fish. So the tags ruled by and large because the P-Fish, payoff wizard, calling stations were very plentiful. Many tight aggressive players learned the correct-ish approach to beating maniacs, essentially call more, bet less, temporarily become a passive calling station type player against the maniacs. And those tight aggressive players that were able to make that transition and beat maniacs were pretty much the total immortal nuts, or I should say the mortal nuts, back in the day, like 2003 to 2007 or 8-ish. But fewer and fewer players are calling those huge raises now and stacking off with like top pair no kicker, calling huge raises with like any 2 cards because they were suited, and ace 5 offsuit stacking off on ace king queen rainbow. It just doesn't happen anymore. So the tight aggressive players are becoming more and more prevalent. We're seeing still a good number of what used to be maniacs are just loose aggressive players that have a lot more experience than they did way back when. And so the maniacs have even just become like good, or at least decent, loose aggressive players. And the fish, they're still there. They still make up a pretty good section or subgroup of the players that you'll face on a semi-regular basis, a regular basis, but like the 1-2 live games, like the 200 max. Now this is a value bet. Hopefully he has an ace. I maybe should have just check called one more street, but I'm looking at the heart draw that can give me value here, and I'm looking at like if he does happen to actually have like a big ace, hopefully not ace queen, you can call. Oh well. Anyway, so there still are a lot of fish, a lot of P-Fish or calling stations, just nowhere near as many. So where it used to be like all P-Fish plus 1 maniac and you at a table, there might be at a 9-handed table 4 P-Fish, 1 aggro fish, 1 good lag, 1 good tag, and you. If that math worked out, but you get the point. So since there's now more tags, then there are maybe as many tags as there are maniacs, and there's probably as many tags and maniacs as there are fish. So tags are the especially in higher stakes, tags are the new fish. They call them nits or squeakers now. So since there's a lot more tight aggressives, the question becomes, how do I deal with that? Do I become a maniac? The answer is no, because if you become a maniac, then the fish, who are still, they're still out there, they're still feeding, they're just going to eat you alive. And by becoming a maniac, the good tags who learn to adapt to exploit those, the maniacs are also going to eat you alive. They're going to exploit you. So, and the new school lags are just going to, drag you into the deep water that they're used to playing in and just murder you. So I guess like number 2, since players are so aggressive and powy, um, play, like powing beats aggression. Pow just means payoff wizard, just like paying off all the time beats naked aggression, and there's so much aggression going on. Should I just raise less and call more and become more of like a calling station? My answer to that is God, no. The tags will kill you, and you're not even going to beat the P-fish. You're not even going to beat the payoff wizards. And you might be thinking, okay, so I get it. If I can't beat them, join them. I'll just have to learn to play like a tag. I'm sorry, like a lag. You know, you might think like, well, all the other options are out, so maybe it's just a situation where I have to play loose, aggressive poker. And my answer to that is kind of like, sort of, you know, that sort of is the answer. But, you know, for one, that's easier said than done. And I think that's oversimplifying things a lot. The main change you should make to your default strategy, and the one that we're going to talk about really today, is what I like to call JKD poker. You want to fix your style, then just lose your style. Forget about style altogether. Whether you know it or not, you're playing a high, low, medium stakes game of rock, paper, scissors. You know, as long as everybody knows the fundamentals, that's essentially what the metagame is. It's rock, paper, scissors. Having a good, solid, taggy foundation is a good thing. You have to understand the basics in order to know how to vary your play, and you have to have a starting point, a place from which to deviate. So, you know, there are still a lot of fish at low stakes, and good, tight, aggressive play is the safest and sometimes slowest, but it's the safest way to beat up on the P-fish. So you need to understand what's going on, like in a fundamental, tight, aggressive way, so that you can have like a good way to beat the calling stations that are still plentiful, and also so you understand how tags think, how tight, aggressive players think. Bottom line, the most common archetypes that you're going to face at any no-limit hold'em game are going to be tight, aggressive players and calling stations. Plus, you know, so you're going to be able to use the tag strategy to beat tags, because you're going to be able to kind of out-level them and you know, think about, what does he think, I think he thinks, I think he thinks, I think he has, kind of stuff. You're going to need to know how the tags think. And the tag strategy is still going to be pretty good against your calling station type players. So you can use that. Well, and plus you can use that tight aggressive strategy as a safety net. That's how I use it. Use it as like a life preserver. You know, use your tag strat, first of all, to feel out a new table, and secondly, to revert to it if you like take a bad beat, you need time to cool off. You don't want to just start mashing buttons or going crazy. So, you know, one of a tag's biggest leaks is usually transparency. Like, he's super predictable. In that sense, though, it sort of takes one to know one. So definitely learn good fundamental like GTO tag strategy, so you know when your opponent has top pair, top kicker, or aces, or when his range is strong. And so you know what he's repping and whether it's likely that he actually has what he's repping. But once you know that tag strat, leave it in the background and sort of work on becoming like a poker shapeshifter, like an all-around game mutant. That's the best style. The best style is no style. Like, you're playing rock, paper, scissors, right? Well, rock, paper, and scissors don't know that. And, you know, the players that are the rocks, the papers, and the scissors in this game, they don't necessarily know that that's what's going on. And they surely don't know that you know that. So you want to identify your opponents immediately. That's the number one thing. Figure out who you're playing against. Figure out who the callers are, who the bluffers are, who are the nits. How big is this player's fold button? You know, can this guy fold top pair? Can this guy fold any pair? Become whatever type of player beats the type of player that you're playing against. That's the main metagame strategy. So, you know, if your opponent is a rock, and opens under the gun, and you're in the big blind with like ace ace, don't flat call because he definitely has a hand. 3-bet. And then like when he 4-bets, then just stack him. You know, he's going to go home talking about how unlucky he was running his ace king into pocket aces, or running his jacks into aces, or whatever. But in reality, you owned him super hard there when you know he's tight, super tight squeaker, and he's opening under the gun. He always has a hand. So, you know, you're in late position, so it might look like, you know, you have a steal to him. So you re-raise, and he re-raises, and you just shove, and he calls and flips over queens, and it's like, you know, maybe he shouldn't have gotten into a raising war when he obviously has at that point exactly queens plus. What can I have but kings and aces, you know? So, you know, you have to start looking at things in those terms. And if the hands were reversed, you would have maybe folded, because nit always had, like if you have ace king there and nit raises under the gun, you re-raise, he moves all in, you fold because he always has ace king queen queen plus there, always. So if villain opens in middle position and he's an aggretard, like just crazy aggressive maniac player, you could raise ace jack suited from the button. It's ahead of his range, but like, you know, to best exploit your opponent's mistake propensities, why do you want to re-raise with ace jack suited? If you 3-bet with ace jack suited there, what does your bet accomplish? It's going to fold out hands like queen jack and ace 8, jack 10 type stuff, or it's going to get called by better hands, or you might get shoved on with better or worse, doesn't matter because you can't call. Start flat calling against aggressive players with your, and especially in position with your strong but not dominant hands. You're going to have card edge, positional advantage, and hopefully a good strat for winning post flop. So when you re-raise ace jack, you're basically turning it into a bluff against a lag. And it's worse than a bluff because at least a bluff has the ability to fold out better hands, and like your opponent's never folding ace queen or like jacks plus there. So it's worse than a bluff. You just ruin all the value in your hand. So, you know, start thinking about what type of game does my opponent play, and really try to mutate into the type of strategy that beats your opponent. Remember, you're going to murder loose aggressive players by calling more, raising less. You know, you don't really want to just think in terms of, okay, well, I think I have the best hand here, so I'm going to raise. Think about what your raise accomplishes. Always ask yourself when thinking about flatting or re-raising these questions. Can opponent call with worse? Can he fold better? And if those are the main two. But the other question is, how well does my hand play against my opponent's opening range compared to how well does my hand play against his range if he were to call? And also, what am I going to do if he ships? You know, if he ships it there, can I call? And you know, if your answer to all those is no, then for God's sake, start flat calling your king queen, pocket eights, you know, against loose aggressive players that are going to barrel air and make like super bad decisions post flop. So that's what we're going to do about the new metagame. We're not going to pick a new style. We're going to adapt our style to beat our opponent's style. And that's going to wrap it up for now, but we're going to get more into that later on in the series, the metagame series, later.